Hey guys, so I've been meaning to do this deck profile for a while now of the Eugene list that I used to top back-to-back locals. I got first place at Versus after playing out top two, and then I got like, they did like a weird, I don't know why they did it like this, but they did like top five for house rules the following day. So I got fifth. I went X1 there, and then I also went X1 at Versus. They were small tournaments, so I'll probably label this something like local legend Eugene deck profile or some shit like that. But I wanted to first get off into the ride deck. For the ride deck, honestly, with the generic tools that we have available in Dragon Empire Nation, this is probably like the best ride line that you can do with Eugene for now. I don't really feel like we need the soul charge from Nigel, so that's why I cut Nigel, and then I just use I'm using the first two cards of the Basagra ride line to search an arms card as like free ditch fodder for my turn 2. So I would ditch this turn 2, and then by turn 3, when I ride Eugene on top of Randor, then I get a free soul and a free draw. So it's essentially like a +2 off of the ride line versus Eugene's ride line only really giving you a +1. So that's the whole reasoning for just starting off the Basaga ride line. I don't feel like I'm in such dire straits for soul that I do need the Nigel. Maybe in the future we do. I did heard that there was more Eugene support in like the Dragon Tree set or like the set after that. I don't know. I said I'll believe it when I see it. But this is most likely the best build that you can make until we get to Dragon Tree, or until we get that one grade 3 promo. That would just essentially replace another card that I'm running in the deck. But let's get on to the deck profile. I am running 3 copies of Persona Ride. So I feel like in this version of the deck, especially since we're more focused on restanding our Vanguard and continuously clearing our opponent's board, Persona Ride is just like very crucial. It's very crucial. Without Persona Ride, I think the highest number you could make is like 28 on the rear guard columns, or like 23. But you know, without Persona Rides, like, you know, you're not really making deadly numbers. So it is really something that you do want to max out on. And then I'm playing 3 copies of Best Harvest. I've always been a strong advocate of 3 copies of Best Harvest. I feel like 4 bricks and 2 is too little. I feel like with 3, you're more often than not going to be able to resolve the card 1 to 2 times, which is usually my goal. Because if I see this too early, and I know my opponent isn't going to give me, like, they're not going to give me retire food because they know I will benefit off of it. So they'll hold off on, like, committing too much to the board. I'll more often than not pitch it early game, or soul it early game, like, and just not use it at all. But on to the grade 2s, which is like the bread and butter of this deck. What's this guy called again? It's a dragon. It's the new dragon, Meteor Flare. So we're playing 4 copies of the new dragon, Meteor Flare Dragon. We're playing 4 copies of Howitzer Dustin. How does that look? That looks pretty Gucci to me. And then we're playing... Is this off screen? No, it is not. It barely fits. We're playing 4 copies of Brachio. So this is the bread and butter of your deck. This, and of course Eugene's skill. This is where like your retires usually come from, and just recycling these and just keep using and abusing them. This is also what's it called? Brachio and Dustin is also your rush engine. Like you can do like a pretty good rush on turn 2, have like a 15k hitter, a 20k hitter, and a 15k Vanguard. So that is another benefit to this deck, to whereas not only is it very heavy-handed on controlling your opponent's board, it also is able to perform like a good decent rush in the early game. And then Meteor Flare Dragon is, if you don't know what this card does, because I did run into situations where my opponent didn't know what this card does, it has two effects. The first on-place effect is all your opponent's rear guards of continuous effects, they lose those continuous effects and cannot gain them until the end of turn. And then his secondary effect is, on place, Counterblast 1, pop a card in the same column as him. Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot. No. Okay. So the first ability that wipes off the continuous effect is part of the retire. So you would do the first to wipe all your opponent's continuous effects, which this only affects rear guards. So obviously, you know, this deck's worst matchup is Ava. But any other deck that does have a unit that says it cannot be touched, this like gets around it. So you can get around Trickstar. You can get around the grade 3 for Keter that can't be touched. You can get around that. You can get around the grade 2 for... I actually have a copy of the card right here as I'm talking about it. You can get around this guy. You can get around this guy. You can wipe off his continuous effect and just kill him. So basically everything else in the game you can get around except Ava, which kind of sucks because Ava's a tier 1 deck right now. But you really do want to max out on this card because it does, like... Because you're very focused on clearing the board to get your restand ability off, because that's how you pressure and like win the game, is by clearing the board and restanding your Vanguard. That's why you really want to max out 4 copies of him. Then 4 copies of Dustin. It doesn't use Counterblast to retire. Also, excellent beater. 4 copies of Brachio. Excellent beater, doesn't use Counterblast to retire, and it works very well with Eugene's secondary ability to arrest rear guards to retire. And then onto the grade 1s. Where are we putting grade 1s? Right here? Yeah, that makes sense to me. We're running 4 copies of... Ooh, put it like that. Running 4 copies of Oswald. And then 3 copies of Jody. Now, the reason that we're running 4 copies of Oswald, I was testing at 3, because my theory was that as long as I had at least 1 Oswald in rotation, I could always pick it back up with Jody and another, like, Dustin or Best Harvest. But there was just, like, certain times where, like, I just didn't see a single copy of Oswald, so I wasn't able to recycle them, even if Oswald did get popped. So that's why I did max out Oswald at 4. Obviously, any extra copies, you would just, like, pitch them or, like, you know, soul them with Dustin. But that is my reasoning over the 4 Oswalds over the 3 Jodys. Jody, what this card does is... That glare is really nasty. Is there a way I can get rid of that? No, there isn't. No, there isn't. Oh, my lord. Okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah, that's weird. I have to put my hand right there. It's going to get really bad glare. So, what Jody's effect is, and the reason why I'm saying, like, once we get a grade 3 promo that does this effect, but better, and basically for free, her effect is act once per turn. If I have a Eugene Vanguard, I could Soul Blast 1, take a grade 2 or less normal unit that's not a Sentinel, and I can choose to put it on the bottom or the top of my deck. I never put a card on the bottom of the deck. There's usually, more often than not, no reason to use that part of the ability. More often than not, what I am doing is I'm using Jody to restack more retire cards and to force draw them off of Dustin and Best Harvest. So in most scenarios where my opponent doesn't want me to have my Dustins on board, doesn't want me to have my Brachios on board, they'll either retire them, bind them, imprison them, which actually imprison them, I could just use them again. But any way that they can remove them off the board, they'll remove them off the board, which more often than not, I don't care about, because more often than not, they can't get rid of Jody, or I have access to Jody, to whereas I could just stack another one on top of my deck, use Best Harvest, Eugene's skill, draw, and then, you know, continue the onslaughts, like the cascade of retire, draw, retire, draw, retire, draw. So that's the reason why we're playing Jody at 3. This is like a very crucial key piece to the deck, which I haven't seen any other Eugene profiles mention or even use. They're trying to use the Crow. that, like, when you call it off an effect, it gets 5k for the turn, and when something is retired in the same column as it, you CB1 and draw a card. That's cool. The problem with that is Oswald wants CB and Meteor Dragon wants CB. That's the whole reason why I don't run anything else in this deck that requires CB besides Meteor Dragon and Oswald. Because that is what you want to use your CB for every turn. You want to have one CB for Oswald, and if you have to use Meteor Dragon, if you have to get rid of those abilities that don't let you retire normally, then you use Meteor Dragon. But that's essentially the main deck. Onto the, well, of course, where do I put this? I guess I'll put it here. 3 DPGs and then 1 Elementaria for triple drive decks, or basically grade 4 decks with the triple drive ability, and then one Dragon Empire OT. I will explain the Dragon Empire OT because I was asked why I run it over the Cray Elemental OT. I was asked, why do you run the Dragon Empire OT if it conflicts with Oswald? And I'm like, that's a great question. The reason is I run it over the Cray Elemental OT, even though it does conflict with Oswald. Here's the reasoning. I boost with Oswald for my Vanguard's drive check. I drive check the Cray Elemental OT. I restand my Vanguard. It's a better Oswald. Because I have 2 drive checks. If I have any criticals on my Vanguard, I get to keep those because Oswald is the worst restander in the game because my opponent has to be on grade 3 and my opponent has to have a cleared board, and to restand my Vanguard, it costs a CB, a discard, it restands my Vanguard, but it reduces my drive and critical to 1. It's the worst restander in the game, but because we finally have access to multi-attack, it's something to where it's like, I'm wiping your board, and like I can actually pressure you, like I can actually have momentum to kill you, to whereas like I could actually play this deck and like do pretty decent with it. It's not the best deck. I would consider Eugene like probably like the king of tier 3. Like Eugene, like if you can't beat Eugene, don't even worry about tier 2 and tier 1, baby. Like, if you can't beat Eugene, like, I'm sorry, your deck's not good enough. But, that's, of course, my opinion. But, sidetracked, as we were, I could put triggers here. Yeah, that makes sense. We're running 3 draws, 4 into soul crits, 4 regular crits, and 4 regular heals. The reasoning for the draws, I was a strong advocate in this deck for fronts for the longest time, because if you didn't run a fronts, you would just deck out because you solely relied on your best harvest for your draw power and your Dustin for your draw power. But again, because I'm stacking cards on my deck and I'm controlling what I'm drawing, which is basically more pieces, which is like, you know, free rear guards. Well, like, not free rear, a free rear guard, depending on how I draw it. The draws come in very handy and, like, just very nice for replenishing your hand. It's very nice because you do have discard costs in Oswald, and you do have soul costs for Dustin. Because Dustin requires you to soul a card from hand. So, I just found the draws just, like, very nice in the deck versus the fronts, to whereas like I'm like so wholeheartedly invested on like I must resolve best harvest to maintain a hand, to whereas in this version of the deck, like if I resolve best harvest once in a game, I'm relatively okay because, you know, I'm not solely like, the deck isn't built around resolving best harvest. The deck is built around resolving Oswald and Jody. And best harvest is kind of just like a plus after that. At least in my opinion, of course. But like I said, this deck did get like a supreme bump, like a superior bump. Like before the new support, I would at the time I did my last profile, I do wholeheartedly believe that Eugene was tier 3, but in set 6 meta, I would have considered Eugene on the lower spectrum of tier 3 or tier 4. But now that we do get our new support, I would like, if I was being like very generous, because it is my favorite deck, I would say like low tier 2, there are like decks to where it's like it's just a really bad matchup for you, especially if you don't like draw correct. And what do I mean by draw correct? I mean draw your Jody, draw your Oswald, your retire pieces. This is still a very piece reliant deck. Jody just makes it hurt less because you can control drawing your pieces depending on your game state. But I would consider this still like high tier 3 / king of tier 3. Hashtag king of the desert. But this is my post set 7. And I guess probably, I don't know, I would have to look at everything in set 8 to say post set 8. But most definitely post set 7 Eugene deck list. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you guys think about it down below. I will be posting my other topping deck profiles. Sidetrack note before we end the video. Every deck that I top with, I'm trying to top with a different deck. For this format, I'm trying to top with like different unique decks, so I'm able to like post and give you guys the content versus like, oh hey guys, I went undefeated at locals with like full powered youth. Oh hey guys, I went undefeated at locals with full powered A. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's some cool things that you could do with youth. I'm not impressed by youth. Like, obviously you saw that Eugene is like low-key the youth killer. So that's what I say, like this is like the rogue king. But yeah, like you will see future content. That's all I can really say. See you guys.